Okay, let's see. Are we ready? Yes, we are ready and recording. Hello everyone, my name is Numan Karaaslan. I am a software engineer since 2011 and I am a software instructor, mostly on Java full stack development, since 4 years, since 2021. And today I decided to make a video about exception handling, but mostly in Java. We will talk about exception handling. We will talk about details of Java a little bit. We will also talk about Spring Boot, Spring Framework, Spring Boot exception handling side. Normally, I would not do that. I would focus on just exception handling and concepts around it in my trainings. But in this video, I want to have a bigger scope, bigger, broader, view. As I said, I am an instructor, and this is usually one day, one full day of my training. Exception handling takes almost like 5, 6 hours with students. They have their questions. I have my examples, detailed examples, and we talk about it. We think about it. That's how a training goes. That's how should you be educating others, I think. This is my experience. So, briefly, this video will be maybe 3 or 4 hours. I will try to make it a one-shot video, like, vibe coding. I will try to make it a vibe training or something. Maybe I would have to rest a little, but don't worry, I won't bother you with my rest. I won't edit this video, so I think this is more immersive. Nobody talks like a robot. We breathe, we think, and I'm not gonna edit this video. Even I want to edit this video, I can't do it. I don't know about it yet. I'm not a YouTuber or something. I am an instructor. I talk about my experience, I talk about the details, and believe me, the rest is up to you. I will try to give almost all of my experience and information, knowledge about exception handling in this video. But you will realize that you're gonna have to, you know, get your hands dirty at some point. So, no edits, just real-time training. If it's boring to you, well, I can't help it. This is my way of training. Well, let's begin with exception handling. Let me get myself smaller. You don't have to see me actually, but well, this is enough. I will be at my little small corner and I have, well, slides. Well, first thing you're gonna ask is, dude, are you gonna just roll down the slides and be done with it? No, absolutely not. Slides are, a little bit technicality, a little bit formality, you know. We're gonna see what we're gonna see. Basically, we're talking about exception handling, right? And these are the main, you know, aspects of exception handling. We're gonna talk about the famous try-catch block, but we also will realize that it's a lot more than that. We're gonna talk about exceptions and errors and their difference. We're gonna talk about the call stack. We're gonna talk about checked and unchecked exceptions. We're gonna talk about throwable and the throws keyword. Okay? Well, don't worry, I will be here. You don't have to have much Java experience at this point, but uh, I would advise you to have at least, 101 level of Java knowledge to understand this video. Also, I will talk about Spring Framework, Spring Boot side, and in that part, you will need to have deep understanding of Spring Boot. Well, I can't avoid that at this point. Otherwise, I would have to teach you all of the prerequisite concepts too, and that will take time. So, what is an exception and how to catch them? Don't worry, we are going to be, bouncing uh, between slides and code. Well, in Java language, we have the try catch block. We will see that. We will see how it works. And you know, exception. What do you understand? What do you think about when I say exception? You know, it means something that usually doesn't occur, usually doesn't emerge. It is an exceptional situation. You don't always see that. You don't always witness or experience that. It is called an exception in real life. It's also almost the same in Java too. Well, we have try catch blocks, and you can catch exceptions. We will see about that too. If you catch the superclass exceptions, well, what is a superclass? You should already know that by now. A superclass is basically a class that other classes are, extending the super one. If you catch the superclass, you will also be able to catch the subclasses. Okay, and then you have a final block. The final block will run, will operate, whether it's after try block or catch block. Well, okay, at this point, you are asking this question: what is try? What is catch? What is finally? Okay, don't worry. And you can catch multiple exceptions with multiple catch blocks. If you want to avoid using instance of, and if you want to catch specific exceptions. Believe me, these are all important concepts when it's, you know, relative to your project. Okay, this is all technical. This is all, you know, gibberish maybe. Let's see how to write code. Well, basically, I assume you know how to write code. I have a simple Java project here, not even a, Maven project or something, just simple Java class, Java project. You can just create a new project, Java in Eclipse, or I don't know, IntelliJ or Visual Studio Code. After you create the project, you basically create a simple, well, it says default package. It's how Eclipse sees it. A new class. You create a new class, make it a main, and it is a main class. Simple as that. I hope I don't I hope I don't lose my voice. So here's the main class. Well, I have my notes here. Technically, I'm not cheating. I'm remembering what to talk about here in my notes. You can do that. An instructor can do that. Here's the main method. Let's begin with the very, very basics. Okay, right. I should have example one. Where's my example one? Yes, right here. Let's see. Let me make it bigger. Now, we have methods in Java. You know, you have an example one method like this. Let's create it. F2, create method. This is example one method. Well, in Java, we are basically communicating through classes and methods. Methods can call each other via classes. Okay, we know that. Well, it is only in one class, my main class. I have an example one method, and I will call example two method here. Don't don't mind the names. These are just, oops, I made a mistake. These are just names right now. And this may be calling another method called example3, right? Great method. And I'm doing some sort of system error print line, and it is hello world. These are the very, very basics. Again, don't worry. I will be here to guide you. Let's run this. Run as Java application. What do you see in the console? Hello world. Do you have any idea what's going on in the background? You know, example one is calling example two and then example three. Okay. And it's printing hello world. Okay, nothing fancy here. But what if instead of writing hello world here, what if I try something unusual here, like saying integer number, let's make it some number equals 7 divided by 0. Well, mathematically this doesn't make sense, but what about my computer? What will my computer say about this code? Well, if you know a little bit details of Java, it works on JVM. You know, Java works on JVM. JVM works on operating system. JVM basically tells operating system to do something. Operating system is, well, shortly talking to my CPU via C, assembly, whatever. So in the end, my CPU or whatever is responsible to divide 7 by 0. Well, let's see what's going to happen. You don't have to know the details, by the way. If I run this code, you see some weird output here. Okay, maybe this is the first time ever you see this kind of output. What is it saying here? Exception in thread main. Java lang, which is a short for language, arithmetic exception divided by 0. Okay, there's also more. At main class example 3, main class example 2, main class example 1, and main. We're gonna dissect this, but first, let me check my computer. You know, I I see my computer is fine. It's not it's not smoking, you know, it's not going crazy, you know, it's not giving me a blue screen or something. Well, everything is fine with my computer. Look, my slides are here, the PowerPoint is working, my what is this? This is my virtual machine. My virtual machine is working. My code is working. My Eclipse is working. Nothing is broken. So there must be some sort of, you know, caution or prevention here. You know, it prevents everything from breaking like a domino effect. I I ran my code. I tried to run my code. It gave me something and it stopped. It basically stopped. So something is handling. You know, right now you start noticing this word, handling. Something is handling this exceptional situation. Everything seems normal. And even my Java application gave me some sort of information. I don't understand it yet, but it is some sort of information, you know? Think of it like this. You give your child some money and send them to market and, you know, buy some stuff, buy some milk and come back. Well, they go to market, there's no milk. What's gonna happen? Are they gonna explode? No. They're gonna come back and tell you that, well, I couldn't find any milk in the market. That's an information. And he or she, whatever, handled that situation. That is some sort of handling. Well, remember the Title: Exception Handling. But from the first moment you do something weird with your Java code, well, you start seeing some sort of handling in your code. Whether you whether you do it on purpose, whether you know it or don't know about it, some sort of handling is happening behind the scenes. But that is a key, behind the scenes. We have to understand a little bit about behind the scenes. Well, I guess you know JVM, you know, Java works on JVM. Basically, JVM is the heart of Java. It's probably it's probably the JVM talking to you about this exception. You know, you try to do something illegal or unusual, and I gave you this. Okay, perfect. Do I have to go deeper than that? Well, I don't think so. At this point, it's enough for, you know, a beginner or everyone to understand JVM is handling this. Well, even I don't know how exactly JVM is doing that. You know, there must be some sort of bubble, JVM bubble. Whatever happens in that bubble stays in that bubble, I guess. Okay, so what is this? You should know about stack. The stack what's it called? I forgot. Uh, Data structure, right? The stack data structure. What is a stack? You know, you stack things on top of each other, like this. This goes on top, this goes on top, this goes on top, and you only push or pop from the top. This is how a stack works. You also have Stack Overflow exception, but let me just, oops, not stack share. Let me just write stack here, go to images, just like this, a simple image or this, whatever. You understand the concept. You push on top and you pop on top. Basically, it's taking things on top of each other. So what do we see here? At main class, let's start from the bottom. At main class dot main. This basically tells me you are using your main class and the main method. It writes here. It says here main class dot Java line number 5. This is here. Okay, cool. This is our starting point. Example 1 is calling example 2. Actually, excuse me. Main method is calling example 1 and it is calling example 2. It is calling example 3. And I can exactly see what's going on behind the scenes. This is calling example 1, example 2, example 3. This is our call stack. Methods are calling each other and they're actually, you know, stacking on top of each other. So we have a call stack. You know, it's also based on stack data structure. But what happens after example 3? We're not calling any method after example 3, and it is giving us some sort of information, some sort of message. And that message says there's an exception in thread called main. You have to know a little bit about threads and operating systems maybe. This is a process, basically, if I want to summarize it, this is a process. Java is working as a process and it has a main thread, the entry point, or maybe, you know, the main thread, the thread that is actually working, and that thread has some sort of exception in it. Well, you can basically say my program, my process has an exception. It just stopped. And that is a java.lang.arithmetic exception, arithmetic exception, which is caused by dividing by 0. Okay, what is this? If I click on it, nothing happens. Let's try to write it. Java dot, this is a package, lang dot arithmetic exception. Well, this is a class. Okay, something happened. And that something is about a class. If I press Control key and click on the class, it will go to the source code. You will see this is a public class that extends another class. You have to know extends relation here. You have to know a little bit about inheritance. As I said in the beginning, you have to have some sort of Java language to be able to understand exception handling. Well, this is basically extending another class called runtime exception. Okay, let's just stick to our code. Let's just don't go to this road yet. But we have a class here, and that class is being produced, probably is being produced by Java. Okay, I understand. Let's not make things complicated. How do I handle this? Okay, I don't have to understand all of this right now, but what if someone tries to divide a number by 0? How do I handle this situation? Well, I write this block. Why is it black? Oh, right. This is a try catch block. What is a block in Java? It starts with the curly braces, ends with curly braces, and that part is a block. Well, enter, right? Let's write this. Come on. What's your problem? Try and catch, enter. We have a try block, we have a catch block. And if I write 7 divided by 0, let's get rid of that to do, we don't need that. If I put this code in a try block and add another catch block, let's see what happens now. Run as Java application, nothing happened. I should have added one more line here. Let's add system error print line to actually, see some sort of output. And it is hello world. Is this going to work? Is this will this able to write hello world in the output in the console? Because this code is illegal. Let's run this. It didn't. Okay, okay. Let's not make this complicated. Let's take this out here. I try to divide a number by 0. Then I catch an exception. It's probably working that way. And then continue with the code. Let's see what happens now. Run Java application. Now it says hello world. What if I don't put this in a try catch block and get rid of the try catch block, comment it out? Now what happens? I should have done this earlier. It throws the exception. There's an exception. I get the message, okay, but where's hello world? Where did that go? Well, it couldn't proceed after that point. An exception happened and the program stopped. Okay, cool. Now I understand. If I write this magical try catch block, the code runs as usual. It doesn't stop here. It won't throw an exception. It won't tell me about exception, but it will go on, working, operating, running. Cool. Now what did we do? We basically handled one type of exception, some type of exception. What is handling here? Well, I have decided to wrap this code inside a try catch block so that it doesn't stop my application and my application can continue working. Okay, fine. This is the very basic try catch exception handling with try catch block. Fine, cool. But is this all? You know, maybe if you ask someone with very little educational or instructional experience, they will say, oh, you have this try catch magical block and you have a finally block, and that's it. Well, my friend, that's barely the beginning. We are just beginning to understand what is exception handling in Java. Do you think this makes sense? You know, you are, think about it for a second. You are dividing a number by zero and nothing happens and your code just works fine. Does this code make sense? No, absolutely not. Why are you dividing a number by zero? Why is this code there? If you want to, if you for some reason you want to divide a number by zero, what are you doing when an exception arises? Okay, let's let's give an information. Let's raise an information, or let's make some sort of logging when this exception happens. System error print line and exception occurred. Cool. This is another way of handling the exception. You don't have only one way of handling exceptions. You have, I don't know, maybe 100 ways of handling them, right? Run this application and we see an exception happened, an exception occurred, and hello world. Well, let's see what happened. It tried to divide 7 by 0. It caught the exception. It notified me. This line, this line worked. And then system error print line. It doesn't have to be error. It could be out. But, it's just a preference of mine. I want to see my messages in red here. If I say system out print line, it will print out in black. That's why I'm doing error. Not because it's not related to exceptions or anything. It's just my preference. My messages are always red. Okay, cool. Now it is able to catch the exception. It is able to notify me. It's able to do something about it and then continue working. Does this make sense? We asked about this situation. If I don't have any code here, this doesn't make sense. If I add system error print line here, does this make sense? Well, we are going into the gray area. It depends on what kind of code do you want to have? What kind of logic do you want to have? Is this a logic? Is this some sort of handling? Well, yes. You handle the situation. You printed out some sort of log into your output, into your console, or some sort of file, whatever. Is that all? Well, I don't think so. It's not all there is about exceptions. But we are at the learning stage right now. You have to separate this. You have to make the distinction of learning and actually applying. We are trying to learn how try-catch block works here. We're not actually making active decisions about our business. I'm going to talk about that too. These are gonna have some sort of effect on my application, on my business logic. But we don't have to talk about this yet. Okay, regardless of this code makes sense or not, this is how it works. You try to do something. If something goes wrong, if some sort of exception arises, catch exception called E, this is the name. You can rename it, EXE. EXC exception, shorthand, whatever. This exception, some sort of exception happened and it has been handled. Okay, cool. This is the very first example. But let's see something else. Well, you can stop the video and write this code right now because I am going to change this a little bit. I can delete the whole thing. Let's start writing a little bit, real world related code. In real world, you don't usually just call methods for fun. You usually pass parameters like, I don't know, integer a and integer b. Okay, I have integer a and b. And this method is creating another variable called c, which is equal to a divided by b. This is basically a division. Is there anything wrong or weird with it? Weird about it? No, everything looks normal. If you call example 3 from example 2, you need to pass a and b. It doesn't have to have the same name. It's just for convenience. Integer a, integer b. Again, the same here. Let's call them a, b again. You don't have to. Integer a, integer b. And here, let's just assume you are passing the parameters 6 and 3. I want to do eventually this method will divide 6 by 3 and it will print that out. System error print line C. Do you expect anything weird to happen here? Anything unusual? No. It will print out 2. 6 divided by 3. Let's take a look at this code. I want to emphasize this. You may not be able to see or forecast an exception to happen in your code. You may call this a code smell or something. You are dividing a number, dividing an integer by another integer. Well, someone can easily pass this parameter as 0. So you have a potential to divide a number by 0, and that is an exception. Okay, that can happen. This is basically, I am explaining this to you to add vision to you. If this parameter is 0, it will make this, it will make this, this, all these 0, and it will basically arise an exception. Exactly. This is the output. Normally, you see, no matter what kind of code you are writing, no matter how safe your code is, someone can actually pass some weird parameter or some, what should I call it? Unnecessary? No. Illegal? Maybe. Some unusual parameter to your code. That can happen. Well, you actually see, it's like you are intentionally breaking your code. Okay, let's change this to 3. I'm not intentionally sent 0 as the parameter here, as b. I'm not going to try dividing a by 0. But what if, for some reason, some code, you know, someone decides to do that, decides to assign b to 0. It's not like, this person, whoever wrote this code, They're not trying to break the system. They're just assigning a variable. Well, in this case, you will basically say uh, it's illegal. At the end, someone is going to try dividing a number by that. But maybe this person doesn't even know that. You probably know there's a thing called legacy code. It's old code, it's big, it has a lot of maybe millions of lines of code. Methods are calling each other. Nobody knows how it works, that kind of stuff. And someone writes relatively innocent code assigning b to 0. What's going to happen now? This will end up the same. This will give me the same exception. It's not because of my code is broken. It's because someone gave me this. Okay, now you're probably thinking, why are you not handling the exception here? Why don't you write a try catch block here? This is a decision. I'm not saying you have to write try catch block here or not. Well, when it comes to division, you probably would like to write some sort of code to prevent this. Maybe if an if block b equals 0, don't do anything. Or maybe else block like this, you make the division. This is not exception handling. Maybe it's exception prevention. It's not exception handling exactly. But this is a decision. This is some sort of handling. This is some sort of business decision. Well, your code doesn't do anything when you pass integer b as 0. Okay, fine, you can do this. Or you can do this. Our subject is exception handling, so no point of writing if else block. Let's do this right here. Okay, then you will ask, what are you gonna do when an exception happens? Someone has to ask this question. You don't just write an exception block like this and you know make it leave it empty. You don't do that. Okay, fine. We don't have to go deeper than this right now. These are all variations, all examples. These can happen, and you can prevent exceptions from arising. Then you're gonna have to have some sort of logic incorporated in your code, to handle that kind of exception. This is Friday. Just give me a second. I have to take a look at something. Excuse me for this. Tut, tut, tut. Okay, we don't have to decide anything. We don't have to make decisions right now. We just have to know how a try-catch block works. Okay, let me see my notes. Do I have anything else? Yes, yes. Let's go a little bit deeper. Let me comment this out. Let's just write example 4. Okay, I'm gonna increase the number. We're gonna have like, I don't know, 10, maybe 12 examples here. So I told you at the beginning, this is gonna be a long video. Well, you can watch it whenever you want, however you want. Okay, where's my... Right. This is my example. Okay, example 4. Let's create this. Create method. And we are going to make a division again. Integer a equals 7 divided by 0. But we will dissect how try-catch block works. What if I have, let me take a look at the example. Yes. What if I have some sort of, oops, not there, it's here. What if I have some sort of integer, a temporary integer equals to 5, and then I try to divide 7 by 0. We know this will arise an exception, so I basically put it into a try-catch block. Okay, we will see the variations here. What if I assign temporary equals to 10? Then an exception arises. We catch that exception. We don't do anything about it yet. And we write temporary. We print out temporary. What will this code do? Let's see. Run as Java application. It printed out 10. This is basically how it works. A try-catch block, maybe you think like this. You will try to do something, more than one line of code. And if a catch block happens, if, an exception arises, let's write this down, occurred, you will roll back the code. I have assigned the temporary to 10, but an exception happened. So is it going to be rolled back to 5? No, it won't. This will tell me about the exception here. It will assign temporary to 10, and it will write 10 in the console. That is expected behavior. Fine. Let's change this. What if I assign temporary after dividing by 0? Now what's going to happen? Let's see. Now it is 5. It didn't change. The code tried to divide 7 by 0. It failed. It skipped this part. And we have proved it. My temporary variable is still 5. If you want more detailed logging, let's do this. System input line, well, beginning. Actually, let's write this here, and the end. This is the beginning of the try block, more than one line. This is the end of the try block. Will I see the end here? No, I won't see it. I see beginning in the console, but no end. What if I do this? Will I see the end here? No, I won't, because an exception happens. So basically, this is how the try block works. It starts running the code line by line. Whenever an exception happens, it skips the other part and jumps into the catch block. Cool. This is exactly how it works. You start trying the code. Whenever an exception happens, you jump into exception block. Okay, cool. Well, do I have to do anything else? No, okay, fine. What if I want this? I want temporary to be assigned to 10, and then do my division or whatever, do other stuff. But if an exception happens, I want to roll this back. Well, you have to do it manually. you realize this is a decision. I assign temporary to 5 back again, so that if an exception happens, I will get the temporary as 5. This is just this is just something you have to keep in your mind. You assign some variable, they're not going to be rolled back. You have to, take precautions to roll that back and then continue with your code. Okay, keep this in mind. Also, do I have to do anything else? Yes, we talked about the finally. I guess here we have a finally block. What does that do? Let me mention something too here. You can't just have a try block. It's an exception. You can see it here. Maybe it's a little bit small and this is underlined here. You can't just have a try block by itself. You have to have a catch block, or I don't actually remember. Maybe I just write a finally block. Yes, try finally works. You have to have either a catch block or finally or both. You can have both. You can have one of them, but you have to have at least one of them. What is a finally block? Let's print it out and see. This is the finally block. What will this code do? It will start with the beginning. It will assign temporary. It will try to divide 7 by 0. It will throw an exception. It will catch the exception. It will write this down. And then it will write the final block. So this is the final block. This output basically proves that try happens, catch happens, and then finally happens. I told you, regardless of try or catch. What if I don't do anything wrong here? Catch will never happen. Run that. It's the beginning, it's the end here. No exception happened, but still finally worked. Cool. No problem here. Final block will always work. Let's write this will always, run. Cool. This is another feature of try catch blocks. We have the finally. Okay. If I assign variable here to, let's say 15, now what's gonna happen? Let's think about it for a second. It will assign temporary as 10. Then it's gonna throw the exception. It will assign to 5. Then finally will happen. It will assign to 15. And it will write me, let's see, temporary equals this. Run this. Temporary equals 15. What if I don't throw the exception? What if I don't do anything bad? Run this. Still 15. Okay, regardless of try or catch, if I say something here, it will work. If I override something here, it will work. These are all theoretical knowledge, theoretical information. Just keep this in mind so that you can, design your application based on these. Okay, cool. At this point, I usually ask my students if they have any questions, but this is a YouTube video, so I can't ask you and I can't answer you, unfortunately. Cool. Do we have anything else here? We have try, catch, finally. Now you might ask, what's the point of finally? I mean, I can do everything in a catch block. I don't have to have a final block. Either try block or catch block will work here. So what do I miss if I don't have a finally block? What what is the point of final block to exist in Java? Well, actually, I don't exactly know the answer. You have to ask who's the person, James Gosling, whatever, who invented Java, whoever invented Java. But I think the main reason is about streams. You have these things called streams in Java. Not, let me clarify it. I'm not actually talking about the stream data structure. I'm talking about uh, URL connection or some sort of what is it called? What is it called in JDBC? I forgot. Uh, JDBC connection. I literally forgot that. In JDBC, I will. Oh my God. JDBC Java example. I'm so ashamed right now, but we have this code. Connection. What connection? What was the connection? Jesus, I forgot. Driver manager that can get connection. Whatever. Statements and etc. We have this. You see, they also have try catch block. I think the main reason of finally is about driver manager, this, dot, get connection, something like this, blah, blah, blah. And we have a connection here. You don't have to understand this code right now. Connection equals this, and we have connection dot, open, close, whatever, maybe close here, right? We have connection dot close. This is the point where finally block really makes sense. You open a connection to somewhere, some stream, some database, some uh, some element out of your reach through a network or something else. Mostly a network. You open a connection, and if something goes wrong, you close that connection. This is usually how this works. You try something, and if something goes wrong or doesn't matter, you close the connection. This is just a simulation. You try opening a connection, whether it is successful or not, you close it in the final block. This is the most logical use of final block that I can think of. I'm not saying the only reason. You might have other you know algorithms that might benefit from a final block, but this is just an example. Driver manager, some sort of database connection, some sort of URL connection to service or whatever. You don't want your connections to hang in the memory. So you close them in the final block to make sure they are closed. But if you're a curious person, you would ask, what happens if I mm, throw, if I cause an exception inside catch or finally? Let's try them too. I have a try block and I have a catch block. I am, I uncomment this, I am throwing some sort of exception here. It will be caught, okay. Then I am making another exception here. Realize that integer A. I can define the same name of variable in both blocks because they are independent, completely independent. You can do this, whatever, but it doesn't matter. You can have the same variable names also in the finally block, like this. These are all independent. Fine. Ooh, I should have mentioned this. Finally block will not know will not know whether an exception is thrown or not. You can't. I don't think there's a way to know this. If try block exactly completed, or did you catch an exception? We don't know that in final block. It will just run. As much as I know, as far as I know, there's no way of knowing that. You have to have some sort of, you know, Boolean or something, maybe Boolean exception occurred equals false, maybe, or like this, exception occurred equals true. You have to have some sort of this logic in your code, like this. If exception occurred, let's write this like this. System error print line. Oops, exception occurred. This is getting complicated, very quick. This happens to everyone when it's about try catch blocks because it's not like, you know, when I tell you to write a basic algorithm without any kind of exception handling, you basically write methods and methods call each other and you print out something and you're done. For loops, while loops, whatever. But when it comes to exceptions, well, you have to manage something, manage your algorithm right now. Well, an exception handling is an algorithm all by itself. It's getting complicated very quickly. Okay, let's see how this code will work. It will begin. It will try to divide 7 by 0. It will assign temporary. And again, in the catch block, it will try to divide 7 by 0 again. Wow, this is gonna be hard. Is this going to assign exception occurred to true? I think it won't, because exception will happen, another exception will happen before that. So in final block, we won't have this message, okay? Like this, equals exception occurred. We won't have this. We will just have that. And then, are we going to see this temporary? Because exception happened here. Let me get rid of this for now. An exception happened inside the catch block. Is this catch block also, catch this one? A catch block catching an exception inside it? I don't think it's gonna happen. And I don't think this code will work either. Okay, let's run it. Don't be shy. Oops. Run as. It said beginning. Okay. It didn't say end. It didn't say exception occurred because an exception happened here. We should also debug this step by step. And we didn't see temporary, but we saw this is the final block. Even an exception occurs inside the catch block here, the final block still worked. See, final block still worked. But we don't have the exception occurred variable because the exception happened before that. Just one line of difference. Let's take this down one line. Let's take this up and try again. Now we have exception occurred true and final block worked. But temporary didn't. And we got this exception message. Again, call stack. Main method and then example 4, and then divide it by 0. This is the behavior of Java. You just have to know that. You just have to accept that, and you just have to accept that and take some sort of precaution. See, I told you this is gonna get complicated. We have another try catch block inside the catch block. Is this possible? Yes. Is this possible to write another try catch block inside try block? Yes, perfectly possible. Let's do this. Maybe. I can make this complicated, like crazy. You're trying something and you're trying another code inside that block. This is gonna catch the exception. So this will write and here. This will print out and here. And then no exception is going to happen. And then finally will happen. Let's see. And then temporary will happen. You can speculate on these code, this kind of code. Maybe I don't have this here, but maybe I don't have try catch in the try, but I have try catch inside the catch block. Will finally still work? Yes. Will this will we see this exception occurred in the console? Yes. Let's see. Run as Java application. Beginning here. Exception occurred here naturally from this. And then exception occurred is true. And then final block will always run. And then temporary will be printed out. Again, this is all just to show you how it works. You can also have try catch inside a finally block like this. Well, there's probably a theoretical limit based on your stack or heap, probably stack, whatever. But you wouldn't actually have try in your code, I guess. You have to notice something here. This is exception E, but this is exception E2. You can't have exceptions the same name inside here. This is an exception. This is also the same exception. You can't overwrite that variable. So would this have to be E2 maybe? This doesn't have to be E2 because there is no E, variable E here, exception E. So you can name it however you want. The compiler will tell you that, but you just have to understand why this exception, this error is happening. This compiler duplicate parameter E. See? Where's the duplicate? Here and here. Okay, I don't want to make this code even more complicated, but right now you realize it gets complicated pretty quickly. Do I have to mention anything else here? Oh yes, one more thing. Let's not write this one. Let's not try catch inside the catch block. We we throw the exception. Inevitably, exception occurs. Catch block catches it, yes. And then temporary, and then this, and then I don't have to do this. And then if I make another exception here, I did that, yes, I did that. If I do this, a divided by 0 inside the final block. Now this will go try, catch, and then finally we'll throw an exception. Well, you might probably guess right now, this method will break. And this line will not work because my try worked, my catch worked. My finally was working, but it, you know, made a mistake. Let's see, run this. You see beginning here. You see exception occurred here. Where is it? Yes, here. And then exception in example 4, the arithmetic exception. So do I have to write another try catch here? This is totally up to you. These are all decisions. Eventually, these are business decisions, but we will talk about that later. Okay, fine. Let's leave this as it is. We have seen this, we have seen that. You can go crazy with the inner blocks. Try, catch, try, catch, try, something like that. You can all go crazy. But there is something called exception-driven development. I don't think you should do that. Generally, this is my subjective opinion. But exceptions are inevitable in your code. Let's talk about different kind of exceptions. Is this the only exception in Java or programming? No, you don't just get arithmetic exception. You can get other exceptions. Let's see example 5. When did I start recording? Are you telling me? Wow, it's, I guess, yes, 1 hour. 1 hour of talking about exceptions, right? This is gonna be long. Before diving into that, oh, we talked about this call stack. We didn't talk about exception and error. I will touch on that later. We talked about call stack. Every operation is basically calling classes and methods. They sit on top of each other. We know that by now. We saw that. And the accumulated operations are called call stack. Okay, fine. But there's this. A throwable, exception, error, checked exceptions, unchecked exceptions, these errors. You see there's this, let me zoom in a little bit, arithmetic exception here, under unchecked exception, under exception, under throwable. This is a hierarchy of inheritance. Zoom back. Okay, there are exception types in Java. What is an exception type? Well, actually, what is a type in Java? Type is basically a class. We have seen that. We have seen, let's create this method. That's, we have seen the runtime, oops, no, not runtime, arithmetic exception, java.lang.arithmetic exception. You don't have to import it. This is basically, the basic default import, but you can write if you want to see the package, and I recommend that java.lang.arithmetic exception is here. Cool. Yes, it's here. This is an exception type. Well, I want to see the other exception types. How can I see that? I would go control click. I will see the runtime exception. Let's click on this too, control click. I will see this extends exception. Click on exception and I will see throwable. Click on throwable. Well, it implements serializable, but it's out of scope right now. We see throwable in Eclipse. What was the key? F4, I guess. F4 is the type hierarchy. Okay, I open throwable. I click F4. It should. I press F4 and it should tell me type hierarchy here, but why don't I see? Oh yeah, subtype hierarchy. Okay, fine. If I press F4, it will show me the hierarchy, the inheritance. Okay, fine. I can make it smaller. In IntelliJ, it is control hash hierarchy, control H, I guess. Okay, this is the hierarchy. Throwable has these classes extending from it. There's the exception. Let's open this. This is a very big list. We will see runtime exception or other exceptions here. For example, there should be IO exception, I guess. Yes, here, IO exception. What is IO? Input, output. The exceptions that are related to input and output are here. Well, let's have an idea what they are. Expand that, and we might see file not found exception. When you take a look at the name of the exception, it should give you some sort of information or some sort of idea. What is a file not found exception? Well, it basically screams, I was looking for a file and it doesn't exist. Okay, cool. This exception probably occurs if I try to write this code. New file, there's a file class and something like this. There are no files like that in anywhere. Well, actually, let's try it. Right click, run as. Whoops. It should have given me an exception, I guess, as far as I remember. Let's make this file reader. Write file reader. Well, this is an exception. It's a checked exception. Unfortunately, I can't show you that right now, but this code will eventually give me a file not found exception. You see, there's a throws. We will talk about that. Don't worry. You see, there are exception types. There are different exception types. You can take a look at this list as much as you want. I actually recommend you to, go over it a little bit. Just an exception. I don't know. Some exceptions will make sense to you even without that much Java experience. And there will be runtime exception. Where is it? Here, runtime exception. And this will have a lot of exceptions under that. All of these are childs, the extensions of this exceptions, this runtime exception. I should see arithmetic exception here, right? Look, there's the arithmetic exception class is a subtype of runtime exception, which is a subtype of exception, which is a subtype of throwable. Okay, well, even arithmetic exception has some type of extension of itself. Yeah, okay, it can have it. This is basically uh, inheritance in Java. There should be other exceptions. Null pointer exception should be here, I guess. Null pointer exception. Where is it? Right here. Null pointer exception. Well, I already know some exceptions in my memory because I have been writing code for like, I don't know, 15 years or something. And I have made mistakes. I have seen exceptions and I have memorized some of them. What is a null pointer exception? Okay, let's try that. This is basically like the easiest exception to understand. I have a string called name equals to null. And if I try printing name.length or something, this will give me a null pointer exception. Why are you going up? Something's weird here. Okay, I can close this type hierarchy. Let's see what this does. This is a null pointer exception here. It is telling me that name variable is null. This feature came in Java, some Java version, 15, 17, something like that, I guess. It is telling you that name variable is null. And this is a null pointer exception. Now you are witnessing that exceptions have characteristics. Remember the example I gave you in the beginning. You say someone to go to market and buy milk. Well, this is some sort of milk not found exception. If you can't find milk in the market, maybe you throw milk not found exception. But what if market is closed? Will you say I couldn't find milk, or will you say the market is closed? Giving that kind of specific information is almost crucial for your applications. You should say market is closed. Okay, eventually I couldn't find milk, but that was because market was closed. So you don't just throw exceptions. You don't just catch exceptions. Remember this line. What did I say here? You can write multiple catch blocks for specific exceptions to avoid using instance of. What is instance of? Let's see that. Let's see what it is. Now I have this code. I also have, I am a terrible uh, software developer and I write this garbage code, integer k equals 7 divided by 0. And I put this code inside try catch. And what am I doing here? Right, this, and then that, and then I'm catching it. Okay, right, this is the code, right? Yes, yes. Now, the catch block will work. Let's see, exception occurred. This will work. We know that. Oops, run. We should have debug this code. I forgot that. But I think you now understand how line by line code works. I have shown you that. I hope that was enough. Let's quickly debug that code. Example 4. Let's go back to that and double click here on the line number or here and right click debug as Java application. It will stop here. You know, if I go back to example 4, just to see what is happening behind the scene. F6, I guess. What was that? F6, right? Step over F6, F6, F6. It's trying this F6, F6, F6. It caught the exception. F6, F6. There's no exception here. Write this down. Excuse me for detour, but you should see this. F6 again. F6. Now this will throw some sort of exception, but yes, exactly. This will throw and it basically stopped my program, my main method, my main threads. Okay, now you saw how it happens. You can debug it all day. You know how to debug. Double click on the debug code, double click on the line number, and right click debug as Java application. Okay, cool. Let's comment that out and let's go to example 5. This will work as intended. Exception occurred. Which exception occurred? There are a number of ways to know this. What is that? Yes. Okay. Uh, I can write, oops, where am I? Exception occurred like this. arrow plus e the exception dot get class dot get name. I can do that. Right click, Java, language, null pointer exception. Cool. If I don't do null pointer exception, I will get arithmetic exception. Cool. Now I know the exception type. What if I want to make the distinction of these types? I should write some code like this. If e.getClass.getName equals to what is arithmetic exception dot class, you do something, right? I have to use if else blocks. Name, not name actually. It is get class. E.get class equals arithmetic exception class. Eh, I know this is a bit complicated because this is about this. It's actually about reflection or something. Let's just see this exists. I I never use this code. We will see arithmetic exception. And then I have to have an else block, right? Maybe, whoops, maybe this, right? Like this, null pointer, whatever, null pointer exception. And this is null pointer exception. Is this a good approach? No, it's not. No one will, will tell you to write this kind of code, but it is possible. Let's make it a little bit funny. Let's have a new random here. This code randomly throws exceptions. Dot next boolean. If my boolean comes out true, I will throw, oops, I will throw null pointer exception. Else, if it is false, I will throw arithmetic exception. Well, you can play with it. Right click, run it, oops, run as Java application, arithmetic exception, run again, null pointer exception, run, run, run. It is giving me random exceptions. This is a terrible code, but if you have some sort of legacy code, well, you have the catch block to at least manage it. Okay, this is not a good way. Well, there's another way. You can write this if E is instance of arithmetic exception, whoops, like this, else if, again, E is instance of null pointer exception. This works exactly the same. Oh, no, not exactly the same, but in our case, yes, exactly the same. Oops, I made a mistake. This and this and this and this. You can write this kind of code is E equals arithmetic instance of arithmetic exception. Fine, this works too. Run it, run it, run it, run it. See, arithmetic or null pointer, perfect. I can use instance of 2, but remember this. Always remember this. As far as I know, instance of is a costly method. You have to, if you remember inheritance, you have to check all the superclasses, you know. If you have a subclass, subclass, you have to know all the superclasses. You have to check all the superclasses to see if my variable is an instance of one of them. So instance of is not, well, what's the word? Recommended. This is not best practice. Let's get rid of this too. So what am I gonna do? How am I gonna make the distinction between the exception types? I will write this catch arithmetic exception. Whoops, why can't I write this? Okay, I will catch the arithmetic exception here. I will catch null pointer exception here, null pointer exception, and I will write arithmetic exception here and null pointer here. So let's see if this works. Right click, it says null pointer exception, cool. And again, arithmetic exception, arithmetic, null pointer, cool, perfect. Now I am able to catch different kinds of exceptions. Exceptions have characteristics. But what about this catch block? You realize this doesn't work right now. Exception occurred. This never prints out. Well, this is the expected behavior. I already caught exception here. What if I try to get this block, cut it, and paste it above the others? I catch exception and then I try to catch arithmetic exception or null pointer exception. Does this make sense? If you know inheritance, you will realize this doesn't make sense because you have already caught the top exception, the biggest exception type of all, mother of all exceptions, like Adam of the exceptions, the first one. Every other exception is subclass of this. So you have to go, uh, what is it, bottom up here. You have to have bottom up exceptions, from top to bottom. You have to have the subclasses first. You have to catch the subclasses first. Already, also, we already have the exception, compile exception here. It says unreachable code. Oops, unreachable code because it is already handled by the other catch block. So you don't catch the big exception first, you catch the subclasses first. If there's any relation, inheritance relation among these codes, you have to consider that too. But don't worry, you don't have to memorize them. Java will tell you what's happening. Java will tell you that a bigger exception is happened here, happened on top. So this is the only way I can write. This is not the only way. I can write this code to first null pointer and then arithmetic exception because they don't have any direct relation. They may be siblings. They may be siblings. There's no problem with it. Okay, this code works, but this doesn't. Okay, that is expected. Let's make this code a little bit more complicated. Let's put this whole code inside another random. So the first random block, first if this is equals true, this one, else this one. If I am trying to uh, assign a null variable and I'm trying to use it, this will cause null pointer. Let's get rid of this. This will cause arithmetic exception, but this one, well, what can this be? What can this be? Let's make new file reader dot dot dot. We create a file reader class instance and give it some sort of path, file name, which doesn't exist. This will throw me some sort of exception. Well, you can have a name guess. Mm, I'm having hard time explaining it. You can make a game, you can try to guess what kind of exception will arise. Logically, it should be like a file not being found. File doesn't exist. Maybe it will say file not exist, file doesn't exist exception, maybe file not found exception. You see, that exception name makes a little bit sense. Well, you can have a guess. Let's run it. Arithmetic exception. Okay, run again. This is basically uh, random. We are expecting to hit this code. Run again, run again, run again. Yes. Exception occurred. File not found exception. Java.io package. This is in another package. Okay, fine. Now this happened. Let me take this up here, here. Now this exception happened because it was not file not found exception was not this null pointer exception or a direct subclass of this. Okay, it's not arithmetic exception or a subclass. It is an exception unavoidably, eventually, you know, it is an exception, but it is a file not found exception. It has its own characteristics. I didn't handle it here, so it went into here. Cool, perfect. There's nothing wrong with this kind of code, I would say. But this is all a decision. These are all, you know, decisions. How can I explain it? These are designs. You're designing some sort of code, some sort of algorithm, you see? What if I want to catch file not found exception? I will go here, uh, maybe here, oops, maybe here, or maybe here, or maybe here. I can catch it anywhere I want. I can't catch it here, down, after the catch block, after the exception block, but I can catch it here, 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 after try block. Okay, Pecky. Okay, let's see here. Let's make it here. Catch file not found exception. These are all possible. Now you're going to ask, am I going to have to write, you know, a, a thousand catch block for every code I write? No, these are decisions. I'm not bothered about, I don't know, connection not found exception or something. I don't know. Or what is an exception? Username password not not right kind of exception. You see, we're not doing anything other than null pointer, other than file not found, and other than arithmetic exception. There are no database connections. There are no web service connections. I don't know. There are no array functions, maybe index out of bounds exception. I'm only interested in these exceptions. I am 100% sure that this code will never ever throw another exception other than these three. Well, this rarely happens. You usually have, you know, I guess maybe one or two or 10 or 11 exceptions at most, different kinds of exceptions in your code. Then you might have, you know, if you are paranoid or something, you might have 10 catch blocks. And if you are, you know, if you want to make sure any kind of exception is handled, you write this code. These are all design decisions. File not found here. These are all design decisions. Maybe you don't want to know the exact type of decision. Well, I would say knowing what kind of exception happened is important. I would say that, yes. But it's up to you. I wrote a web service back in the day. It was basically writing data to a database, and it was crucial to, you know, it was crucial to know the exception. Well, exceptions can happen. Writing data to database, I was writing data to database. Exceptions can happen, maybe connection lost or something, I don't know, or irregular data or something, or maybe columns are wrong, maybe database changed. Anything can happen, but I have to know that. That was important. Okay, you tried to insert data, but that data didn't exactly go to database. That was important for me. And the reason was important for me because I want to be able to solve that problem as quickly as I can. So I have to know what's going on behind the scenes. Well, maybe database just shut down. Maybe a column name changed. Maybe column width changed. Maybe I am writing some sort of logging to somewhere and that logging mechanism is broken. Okay, these can happen and I have to know them. So I wrote uh, like five, no, no, seven catch blocks, after one another. Seven catch blocks. I already caught JSON exceptions, the JSON data structure, if you know that. I also caught them too, because I have to know what's going on so that I can react quickly. So knowing the characteristics of the exception is probably important. Okay, fine. If you don't want to write all of these, you also have one more style of handling exceptions in Java, which is like this. File not found exception, pipe, null pointer exception, pipe, arithmetic exception. These are all handled in one line. Also, maybe in another line, you might catch, what's another exception? Uh, Not IO exception. Uh, JSON exception, maybe. I saw that. JSON exception. Oh no, not JSON. I don't have libraries. I can't think of exceptions. Great. Connection, some sort of connection exception, maybe. Yes, yes, why not? Some sort of connection exception here. What's the unreachable? Yes, is never true. We'll see that later. It's logical, but what I'm trying to say is you can have this and this together and then catch exception. Okay, as long as you're following the rules, bottom up rule, you can catch all the exceptions you want. This is not thrown. This is unable to be caught. Okay, fine, whatever. I don't have to write this, but this pipe logic is another sort. All of these exceptions are treated as the same. I don't have to know the details, but I have to know whether it's file not found, null pointer, or arithmetic. So you can say system out this. One of these exceptions happens. Okay, fine. This is another way. You don't do, you don't have the ability to customize the final block. It's just one final block. You can't change it. You can't multiply it. You can't have, variables here. For example, like this. Finally doesn't get variables. It's just finally. It's just a final. But catch blocks have some sort of, well, options for you. Okay, what's next? Catch, 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 random. We saw all this, all these. I'm getting a little bit tired, but I don't want to take a break. What is it? Oh, right. We will talk about errors. Do I have anything else to say here? Okay, let's talk about the error. This. I can basically write this kind of code. Right. This will be example 6. We saw the variations of catch block, and now there's this thing called error. You must know that. You don't always uh, deal with that, but there are these errors. Oh, remember this picture? We will see check and uncheck exception in a minute, but we have different kinds of exceptions like these. There's an index out of bound exception that happens when you are working with arrays or array lists. Well, you can go ahead and try that. Try to reach the index out of the size of the array. You will see in array index out of bound exception. But there are these errors. What is an error and exception? There's a crucial difference. Let's take a look at the names. Stack overflow error, virtual machine error, out of memory error, out of memory error. Well, these sound serious, you know. I mean, Stack Overflow. What is Stack Overflow? We know Stack. We know they they are accumulating on top of each other, but at some point you're having an overflow of your stack. This is about your memory. This is also about your memory. This one, out of memory error. When you run out of memory for your Java application, you will have this error, and then virtual machine error. I don't know how to run into this error. Virtual machine error. How can that be? Maybe it's about native code. I don't know. I have never experienced that, but these sound serious. So what is the distinction between an exception and error? You don't have to make that kind of distinction. It is already defined in Java. Error usually indicates a problem that you should not try to catch. But exception is a condition that it is reasonable to catch, you know. Exceptional, it is called exceptional situation. It doesn't usually happen, but it can happen. Error is something is wrong with your code or your infrastructure or something. Error is serious. These are not all the errors. Let's see what are the errors here. There should be a class called java.lang.error. This is extending throwable. Let's see what kind of subclasses this has. Error F4. Well, we have, maybe you might know, IO error. We have this Java doc here, documentation. Let's see what it says about the IO error. A serious IO error has occurred. That means in Java code, when you try to reach a file or I don't know, web service or database, whatever, you might have some sort of uh, problem with your input and output. And probably that is where an IO error happens. If you want to know where this class is used, you can do right click in IntelliJ, and there must be find usages here. Find usages. It's not in the Eclipse. In the Eclipse, it is Control Shift G. Control Shift G. Error class is being used a lot of places, I guess. Where is it? Not here. Java base. Wait, not activity service. This should be used. It's looking in the wrong folder, not the right project. Anyways, this should be used in number of places in Java. You can also use that too, but this is a serious error. Let's take a look at other errors. I was going to prove that it is being used, but why can't I prove it? I don't know. It should show me old Java, not my project. Anyway, close it. Debug, close it. Type hierarchy. There should be also virtual machine error here. Where is Stack Overflow error? Hmm, I forgot where is it. Where it is. Stack Overflow. Is it virtual machine error? Ah, yes. It's a subclass of virtual machine error, and here is Stack Overflow error. We will do that. We can do that. I can also simulate out of memory error. If I put an infinite loop, and if I add some sort of items into an array list, and if I try to do this for infinite times, it will throw an out of memory error. I will go for Stack Overflow error. I will actually make this happen. How? Well, it's very easy. Let's see example 6 like this. Example 6. And uh, let's call this method inside it. This method is calling itself. This is basically called a recursive approach. Method calling itself is recursive. Well, you can use this approach in data structures like trees or I don't know graphs. That's very common. But at this code, for my code, this code is ridiculous. It will call itself forever. Then what's gonna happen? If you remember the call stack will be accumulating, and at some point it should explode, and it should give me this. You see, this is a long list and a Stack Overflow error. This is not an exception, this is an error. So, okay, can I catch this exception? Try catch error. Okay, can I catch this exception and say, this is not an exception, can I catch this error and say error is caught? Does this make sense? No, this doesn't. Yes, I caught it. Maybe even my program can keep on working, print line, print something out. Yes, it will work thousands of times because it is recursive, it's calling itself. And when it's broken, it will roll back example 6, example 6, example 6, and it will write print out all of these. Okay, cool. It works, but should it work? That's the distinction between exception and error. If you are hitting some sort of a recursion limit in your code, that is some sort of design flaw. This is not something that occasionally or casually happens. You have some very, very bad code. Maybe you actually need, thousands of methods calling each other. Maybe you actually need that. Then you have to uh, configure the what's it called? Stack area, the XMS, XMX or metaspace or whatever. You have to configure the JVM parameters. They are called memory, I guess. Memory parameters. Yes. Maybe you have to configure them to avoid this. But this is a serious error. This doesn't just happen. If you are running out of memory for some reason. If you, let's do that too. Yeah, why not? If you write while true, and if you have a new array list here, like this, like this, like this, doesn't matter. This is an array list, and you are adding uh, something. Actually, why not new, let's say, what can I add? New string. Why not? Some new string. This should give me some sort of out of memory exception. Let's see. Is it using is it using string pool? No, it shouldn't. It should give me out of memory. Let's see. Let's see my memory. Whoops. Yep, it happened. I ran out of memory. Actually, JVM memory. The memory, the maximum memory XMX, I guess, of Java heap space. Okay, right. And I ran out of that. Maybe I have to configure that, or maybe I have to get rid of this code. Or maybe, I don't know, I have to take some sort of precaution here. Maybe if the array list dot size equals to 10,000, 10 million, something like that, I should get rid of I should get rid of the array list or write it down to database, to file, whatever. This will require some sort of logic. So you don't, oops, you don't uh, catch the errors, you manage them. This is the difference between exceptions and errors. So a brief recap. We know how to write try catch and final blocks. We know how they operate. We know there are different types of exceptions. We know how to catch individual exceptions too. And we know the error and exception difference. We know the call stack. We saw the call stack. Now it's time for checked and unchecked. Checked and unchecked. Yes. Java has a distinction. Well, at this point, I think you should take a rest, but I'm not resting. I am trying to one-shot this, hopefully. My throat started hurting a little bit, but I will finish this one way or another. Let's make an example 7, right? Java has a distinction of exceptions. This is weird. I actually don't much understand why. I never asked this to Google or ChatGPT or other AI. There has to be some sort of reason. I never asked about it, but Java has a distinction. What is that distinction? Here, you there must be this checked and unchecked exception logic in Java. What is a checked exception? What is an unchecked exception? Checked exceptions, let's go to code. If I write this code, new file reader, some sort of file, why is it underlined with red? Why does that happen? It says unhandled exception type, file not found exception. We saw that file not found exception. It is just an exception type. It's just a class. You realize exceptions are uh, presented as classes in Java, which is normal. You know, Java works with classes. Classes are the heart of Java. So there's a file not found exception, but something weird happens here. It tells me this is unhandled. Why do I have to handle this here? Or why do I even have to handle this kind of exception? It tells me to write some code, either try catch block or throws. Let's write try catch. If I write try catch and file not found exception, the error goes away. It's not warning me anymore. Okay, this is a code that can be compiled. The other one was a compile time exception, and it didn't let me run the code. If I try to run the code, it won't run. You have problems in your code. You have to have some sort of try catch block here or throws. We will see that again later. But you have to have some sort of try catch here. You have to handle this exception. Why? This is why this is what I don't understand. You have to handle the checked exceptions. This is a checked exception. This is the logic. Java has two types of exceptions. One happens when you divide a number by zero, for example. Oops, like this. This happens arithmetic exception or null pointer exceptions or others. This is not warning me. Maybe compiler doesn't understand that. Doesn't matter. I will prove that. But when I write new file reader, this method, this constructor, causes my code to write some sort of try catch. This is a checked exception. Others are unchecked exception. Okay, but how do I know which one is checked or unchecked? Do I have to write them down and try? No, you don't have to try. The one crucial distinction here is the runtime exception, the famous runtime exception. Control Shift T types. Control Shift T. Runtime exception. This famous exception is important. Java treats the other exceptions if they are a subclass, direct subclass of arithmetic exception, runtime exception. Java will say this is an unchecked exception. So the rule is, basically, the rule is, I should write this. You should write this too. If exception type is a subclass of runtime exception, yes, runtime exception, it is an unchecked exception. Unchecked exception. I hope this is clear. This is the rule. Otherwise, it is checked. And the checked exception will cause me to write a try catch block. We'll also see that too, don't worry. This is the distinction. Runtime, if that class, that subclass is a runtime exception, it is a subclass of runtime exception, it will be treated as unchecked exception. Otherwise, checked. And there's this weird thing. Runtime exception is also a subclass of exception class. But Java is smart enough to understand that your exception is some sort of descendant of runtime exception. Okay. And it will treat your exception as runtime exception or arithmetic exception. Let's take a look at that again. Arithmetic exception. Arithmetic exception. This extends runtime exception. So this is an unchecked exception. But let's take a look at file not found exception. This is a subclass of IO exception, and that is a subclass of exception. So when I travel up to exception class, I don't, go over runtime exception when I'm going up. So this is a checked exception. If I somehow, extend this class, well, someone that does that, evidently, obviously, well, that class will also, whatever that is, will also be a checked exception. If you are, following the path of exception and then another, that path, that inheritance path, will always be checked exception. If you are somehow a child of runtime exception, you will always have unchecked exceptions. That is the distinction. Runtime or not runtime. Java is able to handle that. These are checked exceptions. Okay, but there's one more thing. How does Java know that I should write try catch block? I mean, what is so special about this constructor or any other method? Doesn't matter. This method, constructor is a method, well, must have something, must have something that alerts Java, JVM, and compiler. What is that? Let's go control click. You will see this. This method throws file not found exception. What is throws? Let's take a look at the uh, theoretical definition. What is throws? This is a keyword, and it means that a method might throw an exception without being unable to handle it inside. Read this carefully. A method might throw an exception. This doesn't say it will always throw an exception. It might throw an exception. I'm talking about throws. This keyword says it might throw an exception, and that method might not be able to handle it inside. Okay, I'm doing something inside the code, my exception, my method, but I am unable to handle whatever going on inside. Maybe you have some sort of method, but you don't want to, handle exceptions inside it. That can happen. Specifically, I can give you one specific example of this. If you're using, this is a little bit out of concept, but out of context, but if you are using Spring Framework, what is it? Transaction management, you don't uh, you don't write try catch in your code so that you can uh, basically you can basically what is the word? Ha hand off the exception to transaction management. You have method, you don't have any kind of try catch logic inside it. If some sort of database exception occurs inside, you basically do nothing about it. You throw it above. You don't do try catch. You throw it above the code, on top of stack, whatever, and transaction management will handle the rest of the transaction based on your exception. Okay, that is a very specific example of not having try catch blocks, exception handling in your code. Maybe you code, maybe your code here, this code is not actually, concerned about any kind of exception. If an exception happens, I will not handle it. I will tell you about it. Throws means that. I will tell you about the I might have this kind of exception, so beware. Okay, that's nice. I actually find this logical. You have some code, maybe uh, A divided by B, and okay, you might say, let's write this. This code, or maybe, I don't know, this code here might throw arithmetic exception. Throw, throws arithmetic exception. You can write this down. Look, I am trying to divide a number by another number, but this is prone to errors, right? Is that how you say? Error prone, something like that. The errors can happen here, and most specifically, an arithmetic exception. Does that mean it will always happen? No, but it might happen, and most probably an arithmetic exception will happen. Do you expect this code to throw some sort of SQL connection exception? No, because there's absolutely nothing about SQL here, database here. Okay, this makes sense if you write this down. But again, why do I have to write try catch block when I call this method? It is because it is not because throws. It is because this is checked. It is because file not found exception is a descendant of IO exception and then exception. This is not a subclass of runtime exception. This is a checked exception. And therefore, you will have to write a try catch or throw it yourself. This is both valid. This is a decision, and this is valid. You can throw that, or you can just handle it yourself. It is up to you. So basically, what is the point of writing a checked exception or an unchecked exception? Well, it feels like checked exceptions are kind of more likely scenarios and more serious scenarios. You know, if you're trying to read a file and that file does not exist, this is a serious thing, right? But arithmetic exception doesn't always happen. It's kind of a specific kind of exception. I mean, if you ask me, I make this kind of distinction between checked and unchecked. What happens if I specifically throw, there are variations here. What happens if I specifically throw an arithmetic exception? This method throws, quite literally says, I might throw an arithmetic exception, but example 7 here, the method call is not bothered. It's not telling me to write try catch. Okay, because this is an unchecked exception. Okay, fine. This is how it works. What happens? Are there any other variations here? You can also write catch exception. It's the top exception. You have already handled that. Or are there any variations? Oh, right. What if I try to throw a SQL connection, right? SQL, no, connection, SQL connection. I don't have libraries. I have to find another exception, checked exception. Which one? Give me a checked exception. I can't think of it. Checked exception, SQL exception, but I don't have the class not found, class cast exception. Yeah. They must be checked. Class cast exception, class throws. Jesus. Class cast exception, right? Can I? I can do that. Wait a second. Runtime exception. Great. I'm trying to find what was that? Class not found exception maybe. Is this checked exception? Yes, this is a checked exception. Exception. There was a specific case. Now, if we are throwing, if we are saying indicating that this method can throw a class not found exception, might throw. This requires example 7 call requires try catch. Okay, but there was a detail here. What was that? Oh, right. I remember. Yes, this was okay. This is comment. You can't. This is weird. This is seriously weird. You can't catch an exception. You can't catch a checked exception if it is not indicated with throws keyword. File reader only throws me a file not found exception. Let's take this here. Can you come here like this, right? This method only throws file not found exception. But I also want to catch class not found exception. But what it says here, this exception is never thrown from the try statement body. This is weird, seriously weird. I want to, I want to take a precaution against this class, this exception, specifically this one, but it says it is never thrown. It is not, your code doesn't have the potential to throw this kind of exception because it is a checked exception. So I can say you can't try to catch, notice there, try to catch an unthrown, maybe unthrown, forgive my grammar, uh, checked exception. You can't try to catch them. I don't know why, but you can't write that kind of code. Well, you can write, I can close this, you can write catch uh, arithmetic exception. This has absolutely, compiler doesn't know that, but I know that. This has absolutely no uh, chance of being thrown somewhere. I can only have I can only have file not found exception. Okay, I know I can't have class not found exception. I also know arithmetic exception can never occur here, but it's not, it doesn't have a problem with it. It's not angry, but this one is angry. It says, compiler says, you can't even try to catch this. That's weird. Okay, whatever. If it is not thrown, if none of the code of, code inside a method inside that method or inside that method, whatever, if I don't have any uh, chance of getting that checked exception, I won't be able to catch it. But there's a file not found exception potential in inside one of these methods, maybe here, maybe I don't know, file input stream, maybe here. See, this also throws. Maybe that, maybe other code. It doesn't matter. At some point, if there's a there's an exception being, broadcasted somewhere from bottom up, you will have to write try catch or throw it and handle it somewhere else. Handle it on the upper methods. Or you just, you can just write throws here, throws exception here. I don't have to write any kind of try catch ever again. But well, if you have a little bit programming language knowledge and vision, you would say this is nonsensical. If there's an exception, you must be doing something about it, at least at the basic level. Wow, 2 hours. Okay, again, I recommend you to take a break at some point, but I won't. So what's next? I will try to force something here. I will deliberately, intentionally say that my method is throwing an exception. Throw new arithmetic exception. I actually forgot one thing. Try with resources. Let me write this down here so I can remember that. Try with resources. Maybe it's in my notes. Yeah, I forgot that. I will show you try with resources. But right now I'm trying to, arithmetic exception is a class, so I can instantiate it. And this throw keyword is, where is it? Here, here. can deliberately throw an exception. Okay, we will use this, I guess. I am deliberately throwing an exception to the methods or classes, whoever calling me. Uh, Don't uh, don't try to ask this question. Does this make sense or not? It doesn't matter right now. You can do that. What matters is that you can actually throw an exception, whatever kind of exception you want, as long as it is a subclass of the top exception class, whatever kind of exception you can throw it. What happens when I write this down? It broke the code. It says this is unreachable code. At this point, you are deliberately breaking your code. So you can't write this here. Okay, fine. Let's write this down. Let's get rid of this print stack trace. What is that? Let's see that too. Yes, I forgot that too. Great. If file not found exception happens, I will get that exception and I will be able to print that stack trace. What is stack trace? Let's see that. Yes, exactly. Without throwing this exception, I'll get back to that. Let's see the stack trace. We forgot. We basically have the same big stack trace message here. It says main method called example7. It called file reader. It called input stream, file input stream. It called open. It called native method open0, and that has thrown me uh, an exception, which is a file not found exception, says here, which is this. This file is not found, no such file or directory. Okay, fine. If you say e.print stack trace, you will get this. What else is there? Well, not much. You would either, I don't know, print stack trace, usually. You usually use these methods. Any other? You may use get message, of course. Maybe I forgot that. Excuse me. But there's a get message. If you are only interested in the message, I focused too much on the details. I forgot some other details. I only get the message, you know, e.getMessage. Where is this coming from? Where is this method coming from? It's coming from this. It's coming from throwable all the way up, up top. The throwable class, the top class has the message, inheritance, superclass, subclass, whatever. You have to understand that right now. And what else? Where was I? Oh, right, yet, right. Get message, get print stack trace. ToString will not work logically. Get localized message. I think that this works if you have other localizations. I don't know, French, Spanish, Turkish, whatever. I think it works. I've never tried that localized message. That is your local, your environment's local. Uh, what else? Well, not much. You would usually get print stack trace here. I can get rid of that method, that line. I can get rid of all this code actually right now. I don't need these. Okay. Right now, I was talking about this. Okay, we have exception class. We have methods there. But what happens if I actually throw an exception? If I actually force my code to throw an exception, why is it not, uh, warning me? You're throwing an exception deliberately. Compiler doesn't see that my code will throw an exception on purpose, and this code will break. Compiler doesn't see that, doesn't warn me about that. Well, if I run this code, simply I get a Java lang arithmetic exception. I can also write a message here, my message, something like this. This is a message. Where is this going? This going to upper class, super from arithmetic message. This goes to super and that, and then super, and then super, and then throwable here, and then fill in stack trace, and then whatever, whatever. Okay, I can write my own message here. We will talk about our own exceptions. Don't worry. But this code breaks, and it's not warning me about it. But if this was some sort of checked exception, not unchecked exception, then you will have to write some sort of try catch or throws here, uh, like this. I can write try catch. It's not telling me that, but tell I can easily put this inside a try catch block. It's not logical. It doesn't make sense, but this is one way of handling. If you're throwing an exception by yourself, well, there's no logic of catching it yourself. You wouldn't catch that. Command, 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 command. You would usually throw it like that. I can do that. I can do this. You would usually do that. So this is the distinction you have to know. It's weird again, but if you are dealing with some sort of checked exception, you have to either write a try catch at some point of the stack trace, some point of the call stack, or you have to throw it and handle it somewhere else. Okay, right now I have commented all the code, but I am telling the Java that this method may throw file not found exception. Is it possible? No, it's impossible. There's actually no code here, but it's still warning me about this. If you are gonna use example 7, you have to deal with that exception. It's not gonna even happen. Well, compiler is not that much smart. I'm not I'm not actually judging or I don't know insulting. Uh, Java compiler is actually pretty smart. It's a it's an enormous effort. JVM is an enormous effort, but these are rules that you have to play with, that you have to obey. Okay, fine. Now I understand checked and unchecked. I understand the difference. Can I can I write my own exceptions? Yes, I can. Let me take a look at my notes here, etc., etc. What is that? Yes, exactly. Now I can write my own exceptions. Let's, oops, collapse them all. That's weird. Anyway, uh, yes, right, right. Let's assume that in my business, I have some sort of person class. Let's keep it as simple as we can. It is a basic private, it doesn't have to be private. Yes, encapsulation, object-oriented programming, etc. I know that. I will just say integer, whoops, in public. Why are not integer uh, age? Doesn't matter what. Let's make it int. It's default by 0, whatever. Doesn't matter. Int, integer, it doesn't matter. We have a person class. Now, we are stepping into the decision world. I told you from the beginning, these are all decisions. These will affect your code and business overall. Your logic, your algorithm will all be, affected, and you will have to adapt to these decisions. Whatever kind of decision, it's up to you. Now there's a person. By default, the person has an age of 0. Okay, fine, whatever. Uh, you can write this down and I can close this class. That's a very, very basic class. I will close this. And I have example, whoops, example 8 here. If I say, let's say I have a person, right? P equals new person. P dot age equals 45, whatever. Is there anything weird about it? No, there is nothing weird about this code. From Java perspective, absolutely nothing. Everything is normal. From our perspective, business perspective, from human perspective, no, there isn't anything weird. If you have a person class, it has its own characteristics. Jesus, I'm getting tired. And a person can have the age of 45. Perfect. What about this? The age is 345. What happens now? Well, absolutely nothing happens from Java side, but from humans perspective, from business perspective, if you have a person with the age of 345, that's weird. That's probably impossible. Or maybe 3,000 or something. I don't know, 30,000. You see, I can assign this number to this, uh, not class, variable. I can assign 30,000 to age variable. Java says it's all perfect, it's all normal. But in real life, it's not. Now you're thinking, well, we have encapsulation, we have getter setter methods. We can basically prevent this from happening in a setter method, set age method. I know that. That's not the focus right now. I can write this kind of code. And believe me, it's like, I can say this. You will, in a big project, you will only be able to change or affect like 10% of the whole code. At some point, people will start giving you person variables with 30,000 ages. Think of it any way you want. Maybe you have a bank account, you have a balance or something, and you may not have negative balance. That may not make sense. But at some point, you might see a person variable. I'm just speculating with a balance variable is minus 10. Okay, this is technically, practically impossible, but it can happen. Or another example, I don't know, you can speculate. Uh, you have you're selling something, maybe a car, you're selling a car, or you are a hospital, you have patients, you know, maybe that patient is uh, a debt situation, debt variable, uh, and that variable, Boolean variable is true, but you are still operating on that patient. That's practically impossible, but your code may have that. This is why I was trying to explain. Maybe like the 10% of your code is under your control. The rest is, I don't know, calling services or calling other people's methods, calling legacy methods, and things like that. You won't be able to control the flow, control the data. So you will have weird situations. You will face with weird situations. Okay, so what would you do in this kind of situation? If somehow, let's make this a person P variable here. If somehow this person dot age is less than 0, or I can write this like this. This is my logic. If age is greater than, I don't know, 100, 150, it's almost impossible. Even the world record is 140 or something, I guess. Let's say 150. What would you do now? Well, you would say, uh, actually, you would also have an else and like this, do other stuff. What would you do here? Well, there's a person in my system which is like minus 10 years old or 200 years old. What are you going to do now? This question does absolutely have nothing to do with your Java knowledge or code. This is purely your business logic now. You see, it's like a slippery slope. You just uh, you just slip into decisions when writing your code, especially in edge cases and exceptions. It's very easy to jump into making decisions, and every decision, believe me, every small, big, whatever kind of decision, temporary, permanent, doesn't matter, decisions will affect your application flow in the big picture overall. So, what do we do now? What do we do now? Maybe you just write this system error print line. Maybe you have some sort of write log file, you know, writing log files, txt files, whatever. Person is nonsensical, whatever. That can happen. That might be a decision. But I believe this is actually my subjective view. I believe um, the best way to know about the edge cases are creating exceptions. I know what would you say? You would say that would, you know, uh, that road would go to exception-driven development, try-catch-driven development. Yes, I know that. I realize that. But knowing exceptions, knowing the types of exceptions, kind of makes sense to me. You know, think about any kind of business, any kind of, I don't know, e-commerce, some sort of uh, business automation, I don't know, for education, for health sector. There are like, I don't know, maybe 100 different edge cases, weird situations you might uh, face with. Not because the world is weird, but because your code is gonna be your code is gonna get bigger and bigger, and at some point you're gonna lose track of what's going on in your code. So what I mean is both the world situations, real world cases, plus the cases might uh, you might produce in the future in the code gets together. Okay, these will get together, and you will end up having very weird edge cases, and you will end up having lots of spaghetti code because of if-else blocks. This is how I think. That's why I choose if this kind of logic is occurring in my code, I would say throw new. I'm not talking about clean code or anything like that. Right now, I am throwing a new, let's say, person age is nonsensical exception. Dude, what is this? What is this long sentence-like exception? Now, I can guarantee you this thing. You will like descriptor exceptions no matter where you work, in other languages too. If there's an exception, you don't just say, remember the milk and market exception. You send someone to market, maybe market is closed, maybe milk is not found, and person comes back and says, I couldn't get the milk. Does that make sense? No, absolutely not. You're gonna ask, why didn't you get the milk? Where's the milk? Why? And then person will say, because the market is closed or milk not found. So making the distinction, you saw Java has lots of exceptions, lots of distinctions, not because it's just uh, their enjoyment or something, not for fun. They knew that knowing the detail of the exception by itself, without looking at the messages or anything, all the just name itself is giving me, some sort of information is valuable. Person age is nonsensical exception. What do you understand from this? Is this about database connection? No. Is this about file not file exceptions or something? No. I mean, it says there, person age is nonsensical. You can even go crazy. Person age is bigger than 150 exception. I'm not judging. Absolutely no. You can maybe that particular situation is too important for your project. Yes, exactly. What kind of what kind of cases are important? You have to think about that. What kind of cases are crucial for my work? Maybe this is important. If age variable is smaller than zero, bigger than 150, well, that's a weird situation. Well, I am throwing this right now. I actually uh, don't don't know a lot about clean code. That makes me confused, you know. Anyway, is this clean code or not? I don't know. But right now, this example 8 method is, you know, using the person variable, doing something with it, the person variable, but it realizes the person variable has something weird about it. The age variable is not normal. So I have to uh, notify someone, right? Who am I gonna notify? I would say you would notify the method who is calling you, whoever is calling you. That's that's logic, I think, here, for here. If we talk about, I don't know, some sort of exception handling logic of Spring Framework, Spring Boot, you may have different kind of exception handlers there. That's different. Again, if you want to talk about clean code, that's uh, that's another subject. I'm not exactly, confident or qualified to talk about that. Okay, person age is nonsensical exception. Let's create this class. Don't be shy of creating classes. Create this class. What do I have to do with class? First, if I want to throw it, if I want it to be throwable, it must extend throwable. So it must extend either throwable like this, throwable, you can say that, right? Or exception. If you want to make it a checked exception, you can make this. Or, well, in this case, it looks like a runtime exception, right? Oops, runtime exception. It feels like a runtime exception. I mean, person age is not a breaking, code breaking, or I don't know, nuclear level of exception. It's not that much important. Well, by default, it has a it has a constructor. You can also say person age is like this. Oh, it doesn't have default. Runtime, it should have default. Where's the default? Plus p dot h. Okay, I'm trying to give the constructor, but this constructor doesn't work. Where's the default constructor? Oh, here. Why can't you call this? What am I missing? Oh dear, what am I missing? This extends. You already have that. Is undefined. Wow. Well, that's that's weird. In my 4 years of educating history, I have never seen this. Weird. See, this is the this is the fun of real-time training. I actually have no idea why this is happening. It should be able to call that, right? Well, let me know in the comments. I I don't know why. I should have I should have the constructor. Anyway, let's fix it. Whatever. Weird. Why am I not getting that? Super string, right? You can also have the message here. You can do whatever you want in your class. That's weird. Why don't I get this? Oh, well, right. It's the signature, right? Yes, exactly. It's the signature. Oh, this is a detour, but the signature should be new runtime exception, of course. How can you even? You're not calling that method. You're calling this signature, this class. Of course, it's not gonna work. Yes, you have to have this. Yes, yes. Okay, fine. I hope you understand. I got a little bit confused there, but yes, I understand. Method signature. It's not this constructor. It's this constructor. This classes. Okay, whatever. Now my exception is an unchecked exception. You don't have to catch it, but you might want to notify it. Throws person age is nonsensical exception. I think this is best practice, right? This. Whoops. What is? Oh yeah. This requires a person. That's right. Person p equals whatever new person. Person dot age equals like this, and then person. Right? Yes. No try catch needed right now. But in the method signature, see, this says throws this. This method might throw this exception, person age exception. Also, you should have some sort of Java documentation. Alt Shift J. This is the uh, shortcut of Eclipse. Alt Shift J, or maybe this, structure. You should say throws person age is nonsensical exception if person age is below 0 or above 150. See, if someone sees this method, they will also see that. What if, as you know by now, what if I extend exception instead of runtime exception? Then this throws will cause me to write try catch here. Now that is another decision. Do you want your exception to be, screaming? Then you extend exception. Do you want your exception to be, business related or silent? Then make runtime exception. But always write some sort of Java documentation. So it's up to the other person right now. You wrote this code, other person is calling your code, so it's up to them. It's, it's your decision right now. Okay, now we have our own exceptions, right? Checked or unchecked. Do I have anything else? Yep. From core Java perspective, this is all. Now we're gonna have to jump into Spring Framework. Well, usually at this point, I would ask if we have any questions to my students, but right now I don't have any. So I'm thinking about if I'm missing anything here. We talked about, let's take a look at the slides. Yeah, throwable, whatever. By the way, this is my email address. This is my blog, numankaraaslan.com. You can check them out. Well, basically, I can close the presentation. You don't need this presentation. You have to watch this video from beginning to end. It is all connected, you know. Almost all of the information in this video is somehow bound to each other. Okay, anything else? Well, no. We thought about exceptions and how they propagate. We talked about business decisions. Well, not ex we didn't exactly talk about businesses. It's your job. I can't give you a million examples of different businesses, but I can speculate. A hospital, an e-commerce, whatever, a blog, a blog page, commenting on something on the blog. There can be, thousands of different cases, real world cases out there. Okay, anything else about Java core exception handling? Well, I have talked about it. That's enough. So right now I'm diving into Spring Boot because there's also exception handling inside Spring Boot too. Right now, unfortunately, you have to have good knowledge about Spring Framework and Spring Boot because actually I should have mentioned in the beginning, exception handling is not, I will write this in the comments. Exception handling, before you watch this video, exception handling is not an easy concept to understand. It's not just, oh, something weird happened in my code, so I write try catch block. It's definitely not that. It's just the beginning. Oh, you know try catch block? Yes. Congratulations. You can start learning about exception handling. So Spring Boot, Spring Framework also has its own exception handling logic. We're gonna talk about that. You're gonna learn a little bit about Spring Framework and Spring Boot, and maybe service layer, maybe DB layer. Not DB. We won't connect to DB. We will just say there's DB layer. There's a service layer. There's a controller layer, and then the exception handler uh, part of the or the application. So this is kind of a bonus, we will go to startspring.io. You can use IntelliJ or Eclipse to create Spring Boot projects, but I like this one. com.example. Whatever exceptions doesn't matter. Whatever you want. Java 21, I have 21. Spring Boot version, Java Maven, and let's just add. Well, I'm gonna add DevTools and oops, what happened? DevTools and web control key, right? Anyway, Spring Web, Spring DevTools. Well, now you will ask, you are going to ask me if you already know Spring Framework at this point. You will ask, is it all web applications about Spring Framework? Well, mostly, as far as I know, 90% chance, there's 90% chance that you are working with web applications if you are using Spring Framework. I would say that. So that's why I'm using Spring Web here. Besides, we have controller advice in Spring Framework, not exception advice or something. That exception handling logic is closely tied to controllers. And controller means web application. But as far as I know, there is no other exception handling logic inside Spring Framework. I don't advise. Maybe there are other advices. Well, we will see about that. Spring Web, Spring DevTools, and anything else? No. Generate. Do I have, no, it's all okay. Okay, close this, close this. Do I need anything else? Exceptions. Nothing weird here. Okay, close that. Okay, open that. Oops, can you do that? You can't. This, extract here. This, cut, Eclipse, paste, and this. Right click, import, import existing Java, existing Maven project. This, and deselect all, and this. Finish. A very basic Spring Boot application. Oh, by the way, I have this GitHub. I have this sample starting projects in my GitHub here. Where is it? Here. Sample starting projects. Jakarta, Spring Framework, Spring Boot, Hibernate, JDBC, JPA, RESTful, Timeleaf, and different combination of these, like Jakarta JDBC Timeleaf or Jakarta JPA REST JWT. These are all variations that I would find useful. Believe me, these are hard to find on the internet. So you can check this out. Sample starting projects of my uh, in my repository, GitHub, Numan Karaaslan. So exceptions. SRC. What? No, not that. Oh, I should have changed the name. I'm lazy. Great. So SRC main source main Java com.example.exceptions and the main method. This is Spring Boot. Fine. Okay. Basically, mostly this is how we do things in Spring Boot. A controller package, a service package, MVC model view controller, and some sort of model. I don't. Yeah, let's make it model. Model. Oops. I'm not gonna connect to web database here, but let's simulate the real world. Likely model controller service and repository. Repository, right? So, what do you have in the model? A basic person class. Jesus. A basic person class, which is a private. Let's make private string, not string, int age. Well, defaults 0, get age, set age, etc. Close that. A repository. This will be simulated. Person repository. Person repository. Okay. We will have a service layer. You will understand why these layers. There are tons of videos on the YouTube that will talk about layered architecture or different architectures. This is not our subject now. Besides, it doesn't make sense to talk about architectures before being able to deep dive on the language, whether it's Java, I don't know, Python, Ruby, whatever, C Sharp, Swift, anything. You have to understand the workings, logic of the application or the language, programming language. And also you have to understand the details of your business, and then architecture will make sense. Well, okay, I have different sorts, different types of architecture out there in the world. People have already thought about that before me. I know that, but you know, it's not it's not first deciding the architecture and then business and then code. It's absolutely the other way around. You understand the code, you understand the business, and then you go you go out in the world, look for the architectures and choose the best one for your case. That's the logic. That's the mechanism I find useful. Okay, where was I? What is that? Service layer. Yes, person service. One class for each model. Cool. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. And controller. Whoops. Class. Person controller. Now we're gonna see the details of exception handling in Spring Framework, Spring Boot. Now we have the person repository. Basically, you would have some sort of public void get person by ID something. Okay, we're just making stuff up right now and returning new, actually the person, person equals new oops, where's my person? Here, right? Like this. Person equals new person. This is a person, not a void. And this person set age, let's say minus 20. Okay. Now, do you think the repository layer, oh, this is controller. Sorry. This is repository, right? Yeah, repository here. This should be here. Person repository, get by ID, get person by ID. Fine. Do you think there must be a try-catch logic here? No, there should not be try-catch logic here. I guess it's also about single responsibility and separation of concerns. Uh, yes, these are about that. You don't do exception handling inside a repository. This is only, uh, what's the word? Responsible. This is only responsible for fetching the data from database. It fetched the data, created a new person, set the values, and returned it. Okay, this much is fine. Do you think the set method here should have some sort of business logic? The answer is again no. This is a POJO, plain old Java object or entity or model, whatever you want to call. This shouldn't have any business logic inside. So how am I gonna, where is that? How am I gonna track the name, the age of the person? Okay, we have repository, we have the service layer, right? The service layer will have private uh, person repository dependencies injection and other stuff. Yes, we should do that. If we are using Spring Framework here, we should have at repository or at component. Usually at repository. Let's make it repository. There's nothing repository related here, but anyways, this is person repository, this is a repository. This is a person repository variable inside the person service, which is a service class, which should have some sort of injection logic, preferably, uh, what's that? Constructor injection here, and then this dot person repository equals person repository. I don't use Lombok. It feels weird. Lombok is cool, seriously cool. I like it, but I don't use it. Constructor injection there and public person some get person by ID. Does it have to have the same name of the repository? I don't know. It's up to you. Usually, repository is more technical. Find person by ID, select person by ID. Uh, select statement of the database. Usually, you can use the technical definitions in the repository and the human-like definitions in the service layer. That's how I would do that. Okay, okay, get person by ID. This will use this dot person repository dot get person by ID. This is a person equals this, and then return person. Now we have a decision to make. We want to know if a person have ridiculous ages, below 0 or above 150. What are we gonna do? It's almost 3 hours. Yes, I'm tired. I think this is gonna be 3.5 hour long video. There's no point of, you know, uh, cutting into pieces. One side is Java core exception handling, and you can't just uh, divide it piece by piece. And the other side is Spring Framework, Spring Boot side. Well, I could have made 2 videos, but whatever. It's not that long anyways. Now, how do we handle person ages? We talked about this. Writing if-else logic usually doesn't make much sense. It leads to spaghetti code. That is my view. So I should have some sort of, again, I will have if-else here. That's mandatory. I have to know the person's name, right? Age. Person's age below 0. Whoops. Or person's age is about 150. What? Get age is about 150. I have to know that, but then what? Then I will throw new person age is nonsensical exception. I don't have to write a message. Create this class. Where do you create this class? You would usually create a new package. My naming was terrible, exceptions. Jesus, that's a terrible name for a project. A new class, a new package, exceptions, dot, not like Indians, uh, dot exceptions. Yes, my naming all the packages and the project is ridiculous at this point, but well, it works. New, oops, this one, new class, this one. Extends runtime exception, right? Okay, now I am throwing this exception. You have to consider one more thing. What happens if the repository is unable to connect to database? remembered my old random code. That one. Wait, I'll show you. I wrote this nonsensical code, randomly thrown exceptions. I did this for a reason. You don't always know what kind of exception are you gonna get, or you might potentially get. So here, I know there's a potential of not being able to reach the database or getting some sort of database related exception or a person exception, person related exception. This is all possible and this must be managed. Where do you manage this? Do you manage this in a controller? Where's my controller? No. Again, separation of concerns. Service layer is where the business happens. Would you have, I don't know, 100 different methods of 100 lines of code in one service layer? Yes, I believe it could happen. I told you I would do one service per one model, one entity. I realize that it's not always, possible in your legacy projects, big projects. Someone will have a very big, super uber, some sort of service layer. Okay, it's service. I know, I understand that MVC service, whatever, but it's very complicated. So, well, that's reality. You will have those kinds of services. Separate them by the models because models will lead to responsibilities. So I guess it will be kind of separation of responsibilities. And yes, a person's service might have 100 methods inside and hundreds of lines each. Yes, it can happen. It doesn't mean bad code, in my opinion. I mean, we are doing thousands of different operations about person. Are you gonna are you gonna what categorize them by their own function? I don't know. It doesn't make sense. This is just speculation on my part. And the controller. Okay, this is my REST controller. There's also at controller and at REST controller. You should know that by now. And anything else? I don't need anything else. I don't need anything else. There is a private, what is it? Person service here. Person service. There is this constructor. There is this person service. Oops. Person service. Person service. And there is this dot. Oops. What did you do? Jesus. How did that happen? This dot uh, person service, right? Equals person service. Okay, weird. And then I have a get mapping. I have the path of just get by ID, doesn't matter. Localhost 8080 slash get by ID. I'm not I'm not concerned about paths or anything else. I just want to invoke this method. Public model response entity. This is the best practice, I guess. Response entity string get by ID. Well, you're gonna ask where is the ID? That's a valid question. I just ignore it right now. Not string. This is a person. Person. Jackson is going to turn this into JSON in the background. Then what? I have a person. Person equals person service dot get person by ID, and then I will return Are you going to do exception handling here? In Spring Framework, you don't have to. They thought about this. They knew that you can have lots of different exceptions, coming from your service layer. So they have implemented some sort of redirecting logic. They're going to take that exception, your exceptions, from your controller, and they're going to redirect it to some other controller, which will be REST controller advice. So you don't have to write if. I'm not saying this is bad. I'm not saying this is wrong. This is just preference. Spring Framework has its own exception handling mechanism, logic behind it. You can write if person get age smaller than 0, right? I can write this. And in this case, I can return some sort of return. Yes, let's speculate. I can return some sort of response entity. Oops, response entity like that. Dot maybe internal server error. Dot build. I can do this. Yes, this is a bad web service design, RESTful service design, but I can still do this kind of thing. Do I have to? No. Let's let's write this or write person dot. Let's complete this bigger than 150. This is a method. I'll comment that out. Do I have to write try catch here? Do I have to keep this inside a try catch like this? This method will obviously come here, will obviously throw an exception because my person is coming -12 from the repository. Here, this is minus 12. This will arise an exception. That will cause an exception. That will be thrown here. If I do try catch, I can easily, I can try that easily, return response entity dot okay, I guess, with body person. If nothing is wrong with my code, go ahead. If something is wrong with my code, catch the exception and return internal exception. Again, I'm not judging you by this decision. This is also a decision. You tried it, you caught it, and you returned internal server error. Maybe this is the way you should operate. Maybe you just some basic person saving database. And if a person has some weird age variable, maybe it should just throw an exception and throw the internal server error 500 response status. Maybe that is your web service design. I wouldn't say this is good or bad. No, I wouldn't, because I think about when I think about what kind of different business logics you might have. Well, there must be a justified reason for this. No, I think so. Anyways, this is another method. Let's write this like this. Okay, this is another method. Also, what about repository related exceptions or other possible exceptions? Well, you can basically do this. What is this? Person age is nonsensical exception. Or maybe, I don't know, can I use SQL connection exception? Uh, what was that? There's a Spring Framework exception. I forgot its name. SQL, not SQL exception. Uh, I forgot its name. Spring Framework has a wrapper class for these. What was that? Data access exception, maybe. No, data. mm, Exception, data except some data exception. I can't remember. Anyways, let's get back. Maybe person is nonsensical, or maybe you just want to uh, catch SQL exception. Right. It's not thrown. Great. It's not thrown. You can't catch it. You understand the logic. Okay. You can have this kind of catch block or different catch blocks, and you can return your web service according to catch blocks. Well, this is basically try-catch driven development. Yes, is it always bad? I don't know. I wouldn't judge you. Is it maintainable? Well, not much. Not much maintainable. Yes. Well, if you're writing just 10 lines of code for one service, like a microservice, very small service doing just one thing, and it will never change, well, okay, just go for a try-catch block. Don't just don't just blindly try to follow the rules, which, you know, those rules are not sacred books. You should understand them and also understand your case and make some sort of merge. Okay, this let's just make null pointer exception for example's sake and comment that out. So what are you gonna do actually? Actually, I will have like this here, these two. I will have this code. I won't care about exceptions, any possible exceptions, but right now in the controller class, but I will be handling them. How am I going to handle them? There is, oh, I have to take a look at my notes. Do I remember it? I guess I do remember. Let's try to write from memory. Okay, I'm closing this one. This will cause an exception. It won't return a person. What am I going to do about the exception? This controller will work. Actually, let's run this app for once. Let's see. Spring Boot app. If there's any weirdness, uh, there shouldn't be. Low, what the local host 8080 slash, what was that? Get by ID. I should get a stack trace here. Exactly. Oops, not found. Why is it not found? What am I missing? Localhost 8080 REST controller. Params, not params. It's path. Jesus. Right? Lombok, DevTools, and F5. Right. It's 500. It's nonsensical exception. Maybe you don't even care any kind of exception in your REST service, web application, whatever. Maybe you just want to throw that exception to your client and give them some sort of information, not stack trace, obviously. Maybe you just throw some sort of 500 internal server error with the exception name, and that's it. Maybe client is handling the exception. You see, we have been talking about exceptions about 3 hours, more than 3 hours. Now you realize, deciding where to touch that exception, where to handle that exception is almost, crucial. That will determine your business flow. Are you going to handle the exception in the service, or client. So handling is the real part here. Okay, that's why I chose to make a video about exception handling. It's not just try catch. Okay, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna create another controller here. I will call it, what am I gonna call it? Am I gonna call it exception handler? Or am I gonna call it person exception handler? Oops. That name may seem a little bit weird to you. Person exception handler. I mean, person isn't causing any kind of exception, but person-related operations may cause person exceptions. For example, the age variable being less than 0, bigger than 100, 150. So I would name that person exception handler. Not handler, controller actually. Also, I'm not judging you if you write an exception controller. Let's begin with this. Let's begin with this. And this might be your super exception controller with designating it as REST controller advice. If you look at REST controller advice, you will see controller advice here and response body. Response body means that whatever you return from this class, it will be wrapped in a response. You return a string, it will be wrapped inside a response with a string. Controller advice tells Spring Framework to be some sort of guidance for exceptions from the controller, not service. Be careful here. My service layer is throwing an exception. As far as I know, you can't just redirect the service layer exception from another controller. You have to, you have to be able to, what's the word? Imagine the picture in your head. I can, I can, I would like to draw that, but it wouldn't make that much sense. There's service layer. Service layer is shooting the exception to controller, and that REST controller or normal controller is, blowing up. But Spring Framework is in control. It sees the controller method, my controller is get by ID method, you know, has given me some sort of exception, and I can look for some controller advice in the beans. If there's a bean with REST controller advice, I can redirect and inject that exception into that controller, REST controller advice. So I can write, I don't have to have REST controller here. It is also already REST controller advice. I should have an exception handler method. I told you this is global. Public, can it be a string? Of course, it can be string. Public string exception handler. Let's call it a funny name. What would be funny? I couldn't I couldn't come up with a funny name. Uh, Uber exception handler. All the controller exceptions, doesn't matter how many controllers do you have, all will be redirected to here, and it will be injected with an exception. This is Uber super exception handler, and you can return safely. I don't like this. I don't like returning string. Yes, if I return a string here, it will be wrapped in a response body, but I also want to, this will return 200. Be careful with that. This will return 200. You might also want to return another response code, so response status. So uh, response entity, right? String. I would return a response entity. Whoa, what's happening? Response entity with, I don't know, whatever kind of uh, response code, status code you want. Maybe internal server error, but does it have body? Yes, it has body. Body is exception happened. If you want to, uh, well, there are exception handling architecture decisions here. Do you want to tell the client about the detail of the exception, or a dot get message like that? Do you want to, let's make this bigger. Do you want to, notify, inform about the exception message, or are you going to just say, you know, wait for a minute, something happened? This again is a very big decision. Maybe you try to go to database, but database exploded for some reason. Do you want your users to know uh, your database is, not working anymore? Well, it doesn't make that much sense. You would say there's an exception, there's something wrong. We're working on it. We have logged it. We have notified some sort of, I don't know, logging system, RabbitMQ, a mail, email, whatever. We have notified people and we are taking care of it. But what if your person has a weird age, you know, less than zero, bigger than 150? Would you like to, would you like your users to know that? Maybe this person have a very weird age variable, so you should go fix it or another, whatever. It's totally up to you. This is just a basic exception handling. Something happens, some sort of exception happens, and no matter what it is, I'm just giving you a message, giving the client a message. Actually, I should use Postman here so that you can see response code 2. It will be 500. Sometimes this is also important. For example, OKHTTP, Apache HTTP client, I don't know, Java default URL client, REST template, whatever client are you using. Sometimes they throw exceptions when they see 500 status code. So that is also important. In Postman, I can close this, right? In Postman, it doesn't even matter. It will just tell you 500 internal server error and exception happened null. What is null? Actually, now this is a very good time to ask my students a question. What is this null? I know I have made a mistake. I have I have missed something. Uh, Stop the video now and roll back, and you might see why this null happened. This is not this is not a big issue. Exception happened, null. Go back to code and try to understand it. Okay, let's see what this is. We were giving exception message, but our exception, where did this exception come from? It came from all the way from repository. Sorry, not repository, service, right? Where's service? It came from service here. Do you see a message here? No, we forgot that. And we tried to return that message. So I have to write some sort of message here. Person age is nonsensical, but it won't allow me to write this code because I don't have the constructor. I have made the same mistake. And this should, if this doesn't call the super method, you will still get null, because it has to be, propagated all the way up to the throwable class via this method, this constructor, super string, that string, or message, like this super message. Now we will see personages of the class. Okay, that's a fun detour. This is the basic exception handling. Now, what if I specifically want to know this kind of exception? Where's my controller? Exception controller. Then I have options here. I can leave this as it is, okay? But I can say here exception handler is dealing with this type of exception. Is this an array? Yep, I'm tired and my throat hurts. What is this? That is a throwable array. So this exception handler annotation, whatever, is able to handle more than one kind of exception. More than one kind of exception. Be careful with the sentence because it says question mark extends throwable. Any kind of exception which has a class that is a subclass of throwable will be able to, you know, uh, caught. I will be able to catch them. So my person, what was that name? Person ages nonsensical exception is one kind of a throwable, right? This is a one exception type. So I can handle that. And nothing changes. It automatically restarts thanks to DevTools, but I will restart it again and send it. I'm getting the same message because I am specifically telling Spring Boot to handle this kind of exception in this method. Okay, yes, this is still a super uber exception handler. Again, it's up to you. This class might have, I don't know, thousands different exception cases listed, one by one. I wouldn't do that, but you might. If you are going to do that, just make sure those kinds of classes are in the curly braces mentioned here, like this or this. Right now, I am handling two. Whoops, what did you do? It's not class. I'm handling either this or this here. Null pointer or person age is nonsensical. Let's go to service and let's, for fun, we can throw exception there. What can we do? We can do, instead of person age exception, let's throw null pointer exception. Throw new null pointer exception. I'm just simulating it. At this point, we're just looking at the variations. You already know how to do it in Spring Boot. Null pointer exception will be caught by this. I should close these actually. Repository, we know that. We don't need that. We don't need this. This is my exception. What is that? Whatever. Okay. My service here. My controller here. I can even delete this controller right now. Get rid of this controller. Close it. Okay. And yes, not right now. We will be able to catch the null pointer exception from person service because you mentioned it here. Here. Let's see. Whoops. Again, null. I forgot the message. Here, you should have right message here. let's say null pointer, pointer, whatever. Restart, resend, take this. Okay, perfectly fine. So, is this it? No, that's not it. What are you going to do about the other exceptions? Control C, Control V, copy and paste. I'm not judging you for having thousands of these different exception handlings here. Maybe you want to give some information based on each exception. That can happen. Well, what do I mean by that? I mean maybe SQL exception dot class. If notice here, it's not telling me you can't remember in try catch block, you can't just catch SQL exception unless it is dictated by a throws keyword. If it's not thrown anywhere, you are not going to be catch. You are not going to be. You are not going to catch it. You are not going to be able to catch it. Finally. Anyways, but here you can say, if for some reason SQL exception happens, I want to know that, whoops, SQL exception here, handler. Do I have to say exception here? No, I don't have to say exception. I can directly say SQL exception because I am directly interested in the SQL exception. I have mentioned only the SQL exception, so I can directly call SQL exception here, assign it here. But here it won't work. It's either null pointer or person age exception. So you can write exception. It doesn't matter. I don't think Spring actually, listen to this carefully. Spring Framework might be able to make the distinction if I don't mention the exceptions here, and if I just write SQL exception and person age nonsensical exception here. You see, it's only the parameter. Maybe Spring Framework might be able to make the distinction here, and you may not need this. You may not need to write exception types. Let's try this. I have never tried this. Let's try this. Okay, let's say SQL exception happened, and then throw here, throw new SQL exception. It's gonna break my code. Wait, why can I? Oh, okay, right. It's gonna break my code. I have to add throws here. Okay, fine. And also I have to add throws here. This is not good. This is definitely not good. Let's go with arithmetic exception, okay? I don't want to write this. Let's go with arithmetic exception. Arithmetic exception. I want to write SQL exception so that you know it's related to real world. SQL exception can happen. Let's just say arithmetic exception and we are clear. And I have to make the distinction between this method and this method, arithmetic exception handler. Let's see Spring Framework is smart enough to inject this one or this one. I really wonder. I think it can be. I mean, there's nothing from preventing Spring Framework from knowing which one to use. Basic reflection. Okay, let's run. Whoops, it's already running. Run. What? ASD. I should say arithmetic exception here. What did you do? I lost track. This is arithmetic exception. This is, let's say, arithmetic. Okay, save it, restart it, and it's coming to controller. It's coming to here. Wait, here, and it's writing this. Oh, it's not able to distinct. It's not able to understand, right? No, it's able to understand, right? No, no, it's not. Is yes, it is able to understand. I got so confused. Yes, it is able to understand. Exception happens. If it's arithmetic exception, it comes to here. If it's person exception, let's try that. If it is a person related exception, it will come here. Let's write this here. Let's run it. Okay, let's run it. Yes, exactly. I told you Spring Framework should be able to do that. They thought about that. Cool. You don't have to exactly write this. Well, it's up to you. Nice. This is definitely nice. If there is a uh, subclass relation between these, among these, then this logic wouldn't work. Even this logic wouldn't work. This. Because if there's a, uh, I mean this, if there's exception handled by this here, by a method here, this will never fire up. Even, even though I am throwing person age exception, this won't be fired because there's a bigger class. I think this will happen. The bigger class will happen. Let's see. Send it. Okay, okay, nice. Very nice. I was wrong. Spring Framework is directly going into this. If another exception happens, it goes into this. Let's make it null pointer exception again. Okay, this is null pointer exception. Oops, sorry. I am only handling person exception. I know this is a bit complicated, but I can't have it. Null pointer exception is not handled anywhere. So it's gonna go into it will going to go into this exception happens as a fallback, right? It's a fallback. Okay, so that means you can also do this. Not that, that, null pointer exception handler. I think you should be doing that because every exception type should be handled differently, right? I told you maybe it's business related, maybe technical issue, maybe, I don't know, something else. Right, null pointer exception. It goes bottom up. Spring Framework first looks at the bottom classes and then the top class. That is seriously cool. Null pointer exception handler. Okay, right now null pointer will go into here. See, null pointer exception happened. And then if some other thing happens, some other exception happens that you can't understand, you can't know, that will go into the bigger exception, which is this arithmetic exception. Let's see that. Arithmetic exception, go, exception happens. We don't know what it is, but something happens. So go nuts. Whatever you want here. As far as I know, this is how Spring Boot exception handling works. Only one thing, left. There is base package classes and base packages here. I'm guessing this. Base package classes. If you have multiple controllers, okay, if I have multiple controllers and if this controller advice is only interested in person controller, I can write this or multiple. It's an array. See that? Base package, where is it? Base package classes is a class array, whatever kind of controller you have. This is an array. You can set more than one controllers here, but this right now is only interested in exceptions that are coming from person controller. Okay, we can say this controller advice is only interested in person controller actually exceptions thrown from person controller, whatever that is. This controller advice is only interested in person controller. This will be more useful in real life scenarios. You see, then you will actually rename this into person exception handler maybe. The first thing I wrote, first name I given, person exception controller. Okay, and I understand now. There's a person, there's a problem, there's probably a repository service. Service is throwing some sort of exception to controller. Controller is not handling it. And I have another handling layer, which is a controller advice for RESTful service. And I am able to, separate the different exceptions with different variables, parameters here. Easy. And this is only about person controller. There's also at controller advice, not REST controller advice, at controller advice that works in MVC applications where you have only at controller. And this REST controller advice is specific for RESTful services since it works. It actually has the ability to make the response body, create the response body. So that's all, I guess. Yeah, almost 4 hours. This is nice performance, I would say. Technically, this is 1 day of my training. By the way, this still works. See, this is 1 day of my training. It is a whole day of exception handling, but it's we don't usually talk about Spring Framework side. It comes later after understanding Spring Framework, Spring Boot. But you had the privilege to have the perspective from Spring Framework and Java Core. Let me get myself bigger. Okay, so that's all about exception handling, I guess. Maybe you have questions. Well, comments. Leave your comment in the video down below. Maybe someone will reply. Maybe I can reply. Time will tell. What are the main key points here? Remember, whenever there is a potential exception or something exceptional in your business or in your code, whether it's technical or business related, there's a serious decision. Every decision is serious, believe me. Every single minuscule decision is serious. I'm not judging you, judging anyone. Uh, by having bad decisions. You may have bad code, bad decisions. I have sometimes, I just sometimes write, temporary solutions to some code Okay, it just works. Let's keep it as is. But that is a decision that will bite me later on. This is important. And when you talk about exception handling in any language, you basically start uh, touching to decision side of things, the real world. We have a concept called object-oriented programming. Or let's go back. We have classes. Basically, Java has classes, methods, inheritance. Are they closely tied to real world? Yes, they are tied to real world. They are inevitably, uh, you know, effect, effective in your project. But exception handling, exceptions are almost the core of your logic, core of your business. Let's say you are a what is that? E-commerce. You're selling stuff, but you don't have the item in your stock. What are you gonna do? You have a controller, very basic controller, service, repository, an item, whatever item, whatever that item is. You're taking that item from the uh, database, but you can't reach that, you can't find that item, it's unavailable. What are you going to do? It's not just about taking item from the database. You will realize what happens. You have to start questioning. What happens if there is no item in the uh, stock or whatever? I told you at the beginning, first understand the language, then understand your uh, business, and then try to come up with an architecture. Maybe Spring Framework is overkill for you. Maybe you can just have a Jakarta web service. Maybe it's getting too complicated and you need to separate your services into different services. Maybe you have some sort of microservice and one microservice is producing some sort of unusual output and that's affecting some other microservice. That can happen. Maybe you have a monolithic application. Even if it's not that big, what are you gonna do if things don't go the way you assume? Assumptions are uh, how can I describe it? Describe this. Assumptions are fatal mistakes. You can't just assume things, but you can't go crazy with exceptions too. Of course, where's the middle ground here? I would have some sort of catch exception in the last exception block. Okay, I would catch different exceptions to be able to uh, treat them differently. But in the end, what if I miss some exception? What if some other business related or I don't know technical exception starts appearing that I cannot foresee? Then I would have an exception, catch exception, the top exception. I would also always have that. I would always have the REST controller advice and catch exception. This is the last resort. I don't have to know every single details about exceptions. I don't have to notify the clients about exceptions, my users about the exceptions, or maybe I do. That all depends on your business. But make sure you have a deep understanding of the business and psychology too, so that you don't have to, you know, change a lot of it, a lot of, logic algorithms behind it. Yes, we are, as you can realize, I am slipping into software architecture and software engineering field. It's not just about, it's not my fault. It's not just about try catch, writing a try catch block. I this is like the fifth time I'm telling you this. It's not just about that. That's why uh, I have specifically chosen this uh, topic, the exception handling as my video. So that's all. As I have promised you, We have thought about exceptions. We have talked about exceptions. We have talked about business. We have talked about core Java and Spring Framework and Spring Boot. And it's almost 4 hours. Well, con congratulate me, congratulations to me, and congratulations to you if you have watched the whole video from the beginning. Well, this was fun and tiring. Let's see if I make other videos like this. If you like it, everybody says that, give it a thumbs up and like the video, share it, whatever, if you want. If you see it is valuable, share it. Well, thanks for watching.